Hey, Jules Plus Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those who are new, I know you can benefit. So, I labeled this, Are You What You Eat? Because we always say we are what we eat. And then, it goes into the whole thing about, if you're eating junk, then your body's full of junk. If you're eating good things, then, your nutrition's and lovely and whatever. And, I come from this background of just every food ailment there ever was. I mean, seriously, from my earliest recollections, I was struggling with food. 2 years old, 3 years old, stealing food at 4 years old. I mean, food has always been an issue for me. And it makes me sad sometimes to realize how little I've matured in that area, even though I'm definitely striving to be the best healthy version of myself. I just continue to struggle with it. And sadly, I always saw food as my identity, which is really tragic. That something like food could be my worth, that food is my worth. And part of that is that both of my parents came from very critical parents regarding food. My mom was a Hollywood kid, and there was expectations of what she would look like. My father was an athlete. They were both products of the Depression, and food was not to be wasted in any way. And, a lot of those things were put on us, and it just didn't work. Some of us went in the opposite direction. Some of us went to other extremes. Whether that was weight gain, whether it was bulimia, it was just really unfortunate. But what's really hard is how, in some ways, and it's often true for anybody with a trauma or an addictive personality, that without tremendous effort, we do not grow past the age that the trauma occurred, whatever that trauma is, whether it's food, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's a physical something, illness, cancer, whatever it is, whenever that took place, loss of a parent, loss of a loved one, whenever that took place, there's a stump in the timeline of one's life. And when it's triggered again, they often go back to that same age. So when I talk about the primal brain, which I, really came to understand even more so recently, I was realizing that is that inner child, that little kid who stole food, hid food, had shame around food every minute. And that is how I address food. And it was a big risk for me to make this channel and to just be part of, the vegan community, the raw vegan community, the whole food plant-based community, to focus on food at all. To talk out loud during my process of actually losing weight and striving to actively get healthy and, let this comfort go of what's never physically comfortable, but what has shielded me in many ways for many years, which is just this tremendous obesity. And it was because I was realizing at the half-century mark that if I didn't turn it around, I was going to have serious consequences. I've been very blessed with incredible genes where cholesterol and high blood pressure and all those things just have not been the case on either side of my family. But we can't trust our genes anymore because of the lifestyle that people live, because of the chemicals in food, because things that our parents and grandparents were never even exposed to. And so a small percentage of our health we can count on because of our genes, but mostly we can change that to good or bad based on our own choices. So what was a rude awakening and very sad for me, and I'm going to be sad to even talk about it, was that my husband, who is it's just astounding. He can only see beauty in me. That's it. When he met me, it was kind of during my drill team days, and I was already starting to put on a little bit of weight, but I was pretty cute. I have to admit I was pretty cute, and luckily he has this image of me is just that. That's all he ever sees me as. And no matter how heavy I've been, and I've been very heavy in our relationship, and I've gone to other extremes, I've lost 100 pounds, I believe, at least 5 times. He only sees the beauty. And so the other day, he just complimented me and said, "I'm just so proud of you." And I immediately went to food. And I was just like, "How's that even possible? You can't be proud of me." And he was like, "What are you talking about? Of course I'm proud of you. You know, you're showing up every day at work. You're being positive and loving for everybody without any promise of a job. You are taking care of the family. You're taking care of the animals. You're taking care of me. You know, you're doing all these things." And I was like, "You can't be proud of me because I didn't eat right." And that's why I had to say, are we what we eat? God, tell me there's more. Tell me there's more to us than just this game. And I'm not saying that it isn't right. And of course I'll stay the course because I just know it's best for the planet. But am I nothing if I'm not eating right? Because sadly, that is how it feels. I think I had so many opportunities to fail as a small child, depending on whether I was eating, whatever it was, whether I was eating too much, too little. You know, I remember one of my sisters used to say, you know, too much food makes too much Julie. I remember even a precious religious friend of mine said, "I love you so much, but I'd like to love less of you." I remember another incredible religious person in my life who said, you know, "You're obviously burning the candle at both ends because of my weight." And it was like, it's always been that, you know. Ironically, I've always been accepted, you know, because and not just as the fat, funny girl, though I was always funny and sometimes fat. But even just like getting hired for my first teaching job, which I acutely remember weighing 303 pounds. They didn't even think about it. I was just cool. I just couldn't even believe it. I'm getting hired in another teaching job at 289. The person just dug me. Getting hired at this one I just had at 279. And again, in between each of these times is losing and gaining over 100 pounds. Each time. All in between. I don't know. People around me can see light, and their first thought is not my weight. I got tired of hearing "what a pretty face." That got a little tiring, I have to say. Because, again, it suggested that it was only my face, but that the rest of me wasn't welcome per se. And again, I had so many other things to offer, but why wouldn't people go there? Why wouldn't people say these cheap, shallow things to me when it was so obvious that I was so damned insecure and that is what I believed? What's the risk in saying it to someone who just demonstrates it every second, right? I loved people who never talked about my weight, whether I was fat or thin. There were some other people in my life that no matter what my weight was, just wasn't even something they thought about. I was just Juliana. But again, I don't blame anyone. I don't know why that came. I literally came out of the womb with that challenge. I think it was just safer to focus on food than on the physical and sexual abuse and things going on around me. I know certainly later in life, when I decided to do alcohol instead of food so that I could get as thin as I could, it was safer again to choose to just be fat and stop drinking because it was just too dangerous. But all of it was just sugar. And I'm just sorry because it is hurtful to my husband. That like literally hurts his feelings. He's like, "Do you think I just think of you as whether or not you made it through a day successfully eating?" He's like, I've never even asked you to change your food in any way, and I've only supported you when you have. But I certainly don't measure you by your food. Would that I have the grace to not do the same. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. What's your truth, people? Can you share in the comments and let me support you? Can you tell me that you don't get it at all? That would be very interesting to me. Anyway, as always, prayers welcome. I have a lot going on at school right now, and I've got to push through. Hey, it's only 9:30, miracle, right? Anyway, if you like, join us if you haven't. Thank you for support of me and prayer. And best of all, know that you're blessed.